The Breakdown, POLI-TRICKS, with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies, telling you what you need to know regarding politics, breaking it down, POLI-TRICKS.
Coming up next up.
All right. And now for our first episode on this particular network, POLI-TRICKS, with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies. Mert.
What's up? What's up? I got to say, it's good to be back. I know we were, trying to find our footing for a little while, but, it's good to be back on the air.
And sometimes a break is what's necessary in order for us to find the best way to approach the future. And right now, we got to be soldiers approaching this future. Gee whiz.
You are not wrong, my friend. You are not wrong. Because every day, it gets a little bit more real out there.
Indeed, indeed. This guy. We're just going to call him this guy.
That's all he deserves at this point.
It's cray-cray. I mean, and I know about crazy. I mean, some would think I might have invented the word, but gee whiz. I feel like he's a client, or needs to be, or one of my clients that got away that I need to institutionalize. You know what I'm saying?
And you're not the only one who feels that way. There are some mental health professionals who, looked at how Donald Trump does things, and they're just like, yeah, he really shouldn't be president. He really needs help.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
So that's not just, being glib or hyperbole. That is,
it's disturbing. It's sad.
Yeah.
And what I feel like, we haven't had an uptick necessarily behind the politics. I work in mental health. But we have seen an uptick in substance abuse for some reason. Not saying it's related in any way, but
right.
It might be.
Right. And I mean, the substance abuse, it's become a part of America, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But the main thing is the treatment,
Right.
Getting people, helping them take control of their lives again. And you figure with someone like Trump, who's looking to recriminalize drug offenders and then cut their access to, to rehab, to getting better, it's just going to make things a lot worse, and
right.
It's a sad state of affairs that you have some people who they can't see through all that. All they see is, what am I going to get out of this?
Right.
Or he's my guy, because they had to look at a black president for 8 years. So now they see Trump, a reality star buffoon, and they're just like, you know what? He's our guy. Someone once said, if you have a president that you could have a beer with, don't vote for him, because he's probably not going to be good at what he does. And if there's one thing that a lot of people are tired of, is Donald Trump's tweets, because he tweets every day, and he tweets like a crazy person. And he had a tweet storm a couple days ago, right? Started at like 6:30 in the morning, and he just gets up and just starts tweeting. He had a string of like 10 or 12 tweets. I got 8 of them that I wanted to break down, because it just goes to show the reason why Trump loves tweets is because it allows him to bypass the press and talk directly to his people.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't have that filter of people fact checking him. He could just say whatever he wants to, and his people will just lap it up. And there were, out of his tweet storm, I pulled out 8 tweets, because the rest of them were just like, oh, I'm going to be here, or I'm going to be there.
Okay.
But he was lamenting over his current situation. So this covers a wide range of stuff. So if it seems like I'm all over the place, it's because Trump is all over the place.
There you go. I ain't mad at you. Do what you do.
So the first tweet that he had was, a new intelligence leak from the Amazon Washington Post, this time against AG Attorney General Jeff Sessions. These illegal leaks, like Comey's, must stop. Now, it begs a question. Are White House leaks illegal? And the answer is no. Now, that's not an absolute no, right? Because I did a little bit of digging on that.
Mm-hmm.
U.S. Code 798 criminalizes making some types of classified information public if it aids a foreign nation or could harm the United States. But this usually relates to intelligence communication tools, right? And then you have Code 641, which is used to prosecute leaks, and it criminalizes stealing, selling, and giving away records that belong to the government. Now, the courts are divided on this if that counts for giving information to the media. And that's the big thing. All this information that's quote-unquote leaking from the White House is going to the media.
Okay.
So it's not like it's going to the Russians or the Ukrainians or anybody like that. It's going to the press. And the press is just reporting on what they're doing. And it's not like they're reporting on, hell, they're leaking the fact that Trump is leaking information directly to the Russians.
Okay.
So the thing is that Trump is not worried about the thing that he does. He's just worried about the fact that they're being leaked out. And that goes into his next tweet. So he says, while we all agree that U.S. President has the complete power to pardon, why think of that when only crime so far is leaks against us? Talk about his administration. And then he writes fake news in all caps. First of all, does the U.S. president have complete power to pardon? Actually, yes. Okay? This is going to be a little bit long-winded, but this is from the Washington Post, right?
Okay. All right.
It says, the pardon provision of the Constitution is there to enable the president to act essentially in the role of a judge of another person's criminal case and intervene on behalf of the defendant when the president determines that would be equitable. For example, the president might believe the courts made the wrong decision about someone's guilt or about sentencing. Barack Obama felt this way about excessive sentences for low-level drug offenses. Or the president might be impressed by the defendant's subsequent conduct and using powers far exceeding those of a parole board, might issue a pardon or a commutation of a sentence. Other equitable, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, considerations could also weigh in favor of leniency. A president might choose to grant a pardon before prosecution of a person when the president believes that the prosecution is not in the national interest. President Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon in part for this reason. Or a president may conclude that even if a person may have committed a crime, he was acting in good faith to protect the national interest. George H.W. Bush pardoned former Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger in the Iran-Contra affair in part for this reason. In all such instances, however, the president is acting as a kind of super judge and making a decision about someone else's conduct. The justice of someone else's sentence, or whether it is in the national interest to prosecute someone else. He is not making a decision about himself. Self-pardon under this rubric is impossible. So the president can, yes, he can pardon people, but he cannot pardon himself. So I know that was a long-winded way to say that, but I just wanted to give examples of, presidents have pardoned people over the years, and President Obama broke a record for commuting prisoner sentences. Unfortunately, he can only commute the sentences of federal prisoners.
Right.
He can't do it for the states, or else a lot more people would have went free for non-violent drug offenses, But here's another thing, though. They found, and I had it saved and I couldn't find it again, so I apologize. But you figure they had a case. I don't know why the Supreme Court case came up, and I forgot to look up who was president in 1915, but the Supreme Court then ruled that accepting a pardon is practically an admission of guilt. So if the president was talking about Trump, talking about pardoning himself, well, if he has to pardon himself or pardon people in his administration, he's admitting his guilt. He's admitting that he is or they are guilty, right? And, well, put it like this. Here's the next thing that gets under my skin. I'm going to read these next two tweets together, right? So many people are asking why isn't the Attorney General or Special Counsel looking at the many Hillary Clinton or Comey crimes? 33,000 emails deleted. And then the next one says, what about all the Clinton ties to Russia, including Podesta Company, uranium deal, Russian reset, whatever that is, big dollar speeches, etc.? Here's the thing about that, right? Why the fuck is he talking about Hillary Clinton? Hillary Clinton is nobody right now. She holds no public office. She has a super PAC. So what? All these people have super PACs.
Right.
She holds no office. She holds no power. Why is he talking about her? And it's basically somebody posted a definition of something called whataboutism. Right. It looks like they got it from Wikipedia. But it says, whataboutism is a propaganda technique formerly used by the Soviet Union in its dealings with the Western world, and subsequently used as a form of propaganda in post-Soviet Russia. When criticisms were leveled at the Soviet Union, the Soviet response would be, what about, followed by an event in the Western world. It is a variant of Tukokwe, I'm pronouncing that wrong probably, or appeal to hypocrisy, a logical fallacy that attempts to discredit an opponent's position by charging them with hypocrisy without directly refuting or disproving their argument. So basically, Trump is not disputing anything that's being leveled against him. He may say fake news and all this other stuff, but he's not saying, hey, this stuff that they're accusing me of didn't happen. He's saying, yeah, well, but what about Hillary? You know, or what about John Podesta? Or what about James Comey?
Yeah, it's basically like, nah, boo-boo, what about them? Divert off me back to you.
Right. Exactly. And it's absolutely pathetic, but his
immature. It's inappropriate.
Yeah. But his people eat it up. I mean, if Hillary was still, I don't know, say she was still a senator, or even, well, she wouldn't be Secretary of State under him, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
If she still held public office, but here's the thing, all that stuff that they're talking about, she's already been cleared of. So it's not like, you know, they're like, why aren't they investigating that? No, what he means is, why aren't they investigating that again? There were, what was it, between 6 or 8 Benghazi hearings?
Mm-hmm.
When they had hearings under other presidents, right, for embassy bombings, because there were a whole bunch under Reagan, there were a whole bunch under Bush, right? Bush, I don't remember how many were under Bush Sr., but there were a bunch under Bush Jr. And they would investigate them, and then they'd move on. So they did Hillary's like 8 times for the same Benghazi hearing, because it's basically, and they said this was Einstein, and I found out that somebody said that Einstein didn't make this quote, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If you have a mistrial, like what happened to Bill Cosby, right? Basically, in a mistrial, it's basically jury couldn't come to a full conclusion.
Right.
And I want to say with the Cosby case, when his last acquittal, I mean, he was out there dancing like he was still on the Cosby Show. It was only like 11-1. Like there was only like one, either 11-1 or 10-2 to convict. So he got by the skin of his ass. But the thing is, in an acquittal, basically, they could have that trial again if they feel they have enough information or enough, enough to go back to court. In an investigation, if you investigate and you don't find any wrongdoing, investigating again is not going to just turn up something. So if something did come up, like they find new information that says, okay, here's something that we didn't know before, let's go through it again. But in most of those redos, they didn't have anything. They had hearsay, and then they just do it again. So a lot of the stuff that Trump is yelling about has already been asked and answered. It's already been investigated, sometimes several times, and they didn't find anything. But he keeps bringing it up because he knows that his people will just be like, yeah, well, what about, you know. And he still calls her crooked Hillary Clinton like he's still on the campaign trail. Here's my favorite one. My son Donald openly gave his emails to the media and authorities, whereas crooked Hillary Clinton deleted and acid-washed her 33,000 emails. First of all, she acid-washed them? They're not a pair of jeans, you fucking moron. Second of all, the only reason why Donald Jr.
Please answer some questions about what you've learned.
Only reason why Donald Jr. gave up those emails is because the New York Times already told him, yeah, we got the emails. They already had his emails. So he had to rush to release them without even reading them. And ended up incriminating himself even more.
Oh, man.
For that fake transparency. Just so he could say, well, I don't have anything to hide. Here's all the emails. And ends up incriminating himself.
And the funny thing about that, in my opinion, is that's emails. I mean, just like how many times I might have talked to you face-to-face or talked to you on the phone, emails may only be 30 or 40% of the way I communicate with you. So to me, releasing emails ain't really saying a whole lot. As in my mind, I'm not going to email certain things anyway to avoid a paper trail.
Right.
If you can't remember what we talked about, hey, that's on you.
Right. But in the case of these emails, it proved that he went to that meeting looking for dirt on Hillary Clinton to help his father win the election. And as a matter of fact, as it was pointed out in, I forget which publication pointed it out, but Donald Trump basically made that announcement that he was going to have some big news about Hillary Clinton, and that was just before Don Jr. went to the meeting, and then found out that he didn't get anything. So in Don Jr.'s mind, oh, well, I didn't get anything, so it's not really collusion. I think, who was it? Stephen Colbert ragged on that and said, that's like saying, if I break into your house, but you don't have anything to steal, then it's not really robbery. As a matter of fact, I'm the victim here. So it's just like that, you know. But the only reason why he released those emails is because the New York Times already had them and was going to release them. And the New York Times did it very, very smart because they didn't release everything at once. What they forced Trump Jr. to do was to change his story all the time. So every time they'd release a little bit of information, then Don Jr. would tell a story. Then the Times would release more information, and then he would change his story. So he changed his story in that like 3 or 4 times. So whether anything happened or not, it just proves that he lied about it. You know, you figure Jared Kushner already sent, because Jared Kushner set to testify in a closed-door Senate hearing either tomorrow or Wednesday. So he already wrote like an 11-page document. He's already trying to cut that cord and get out of this because he wrote an 11-page document stating how he wasn't involved and how he had his assistant try and get out of the meeting, and, you know, he's scared. So he's really, really, really scared. You know. Here's another one that struck me as funny. Another tweet. In all fairness to Anthony Scaramucci. Now, I'm going to say something about Anthony Scaramucci, right?
Okay.
And this is going to come off as terrible. When I think of the name Scaramucci, I either think of like an old James Bond villain from the 70s or a mobster who was found in a dumpster with his throat cut. I don't know why. He just has that really, really...
Sorry, that's incorrect.
Okay, I deserve that one. But it says, in all fairness to Anthony Scaramucci, he wanted to endorse me first before the Republican primary started, but didn't think I was running. That is a lie, because there was video of Scaramucci on, I want to say it was CNN, either CNN or MSNBC. He was on one of those panels where he was ragging on Donald Trump. So if he wanted to endorse Donald Trump, he would have endorsed him then. But no, he was ragging on Donald Trump because of the way he was running his campaign. You know, when he was ragging on Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and all of them, and Jeb Bush, who he crushed in the primaries, by the way. But if Scaramucci wanted to endorse Trump, he would have endorsed Trump. The only reason why Scaramucci is working for them now is, number one, Scaramucci has no soul. You could see, like, Sean Spicer. If you saw Sean Spicer in the beginning of the year, when he was a press secretary, and saw him like 3 weeks ago, you could just see that job was really wearing on him. Kellyanne Conway can lie all day, and it doesn't even faze her. But with, what's his name, it was really starting to wear on him. He was really starting to feel, feel that heat. So, but,
Okay.
All right, we got a caller.
All right, we have Najee, he's a law enforcement expert, and he would like to talk about the Somali Cop case regarding the murder of the Australian woman.
Sure, go for it.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Najee, we can hear you fine. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine. I'll enjoy listening to you guys talk about your president.
Not our president. Don't tell that lie.
I'm washing my hands of that.
Mercer didn't even vote for him, so I voted for Hillary. So he didn't vote for nobody. He didn't vote for no president.
Well, he is the president. So, but I'm not a fan of his. I can tell you that. But it's a big mess. But
he makes it hard to be a fan. I mean, he really makes it hard. I thought at least he would. He seems. I like him less now as a president than I liked him as a celebrity, apprentice, or whatever else he did. And that's really sad, considering I thought he would upgrade himself. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, well, I think it says a lot about. I think it says more about the moral climate of our country, and less than what it says about Donald Trump. Donald Trump came in, as you know, already broadcasting his immorality. And right. America voted for him. And so, to me, that says, the moral decline in this country is, has surpassed even that of Donald Trump. I mean, and it had to in order to get him elected. And
right.
So, for me, I just shake my head. I walk around and, when I'm out doing day-to-day business, and, you have to be thinking, man, what are people thinking? What's going through people's minds in order for this man to be in the White House? So it's a real sad state, I think, for, this country and probably the whole world in general, because Trump is not well received, by people across the globe. And, when people look at the United States, the first person they look at is the president.
Right.
And, he sort of sums up the values, the ideologies, the mindset of, for the people of America. And he doesn't speak for me, but, he's the figurehead. What can we say? The only thing we can do now is hope that he gets impeached, which I don't know if that's going to happen. But even if it does, a lot of the things that he's already put in place is going to take years to undo anyway.
Yeah. And I don't think this Russia thing will impeach Trump. I think that if Robert Mueller ends up getting a hold of his tax returns, that might be the thing that may at least force him out. But, I mean, if this Russia thing was going to impeach Trump, it would have happened already. And I know they need to make sure that they have everything together before they go out. Because as long as the Republicans are in power in the House and the Senate, there's not going to be an impeachment. That's never going to happen. Because until they get their tax cuts, they're not going to turn on Trump. But if they find something in those tax returns that are so bad that the Republicans have no choice, or else if they defend Trump, they're going to lose their own jobs. I mean, Mitch McConnell won't even be safe. So that's the thing. But I don't think the Russia thing will get him. But I think that once Mueller gets into those tax returns, that might be a game changer.
Select another topic.
So we're here to talk about, we brought this expert on to talk about the Somali cop who murdered that Australian woman. Najee.
Yes. Well, I've been kind of following this story for a while. I'm still following that, as well. And that whole thing bothers me. I've been in law enforcement, so when I look at incidents like this, I look at it from more than just a civilian perspective. I look at it from a law enforcement perspective because I've been there, and I've sort of played this incident over in my mind, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I come up on a scene, and I got a partner in the car.
Mm-hmm.
This woman comes out of the shadows, more or less. I hear a loud sound. I take my duty weapon, and I shoot it. I discharge my weapon in front of my partner's face. So that means the bullet is actually, speeding past his face, out of the patrol car into this person. And I keep asking myself, what is wrong with that? And it's a lot wrong with it. And I think another thing, too, before we start actually getting into, the dynamics of what's wrong, mm-hmm. is that the other component is now that, the media, of course, is trying to make this into a race issue. And I got a few thoughts on that, too. But I think, though, when we look at this case, it's a sad case. It's one that should not have happened
right.
to this lady. She was simply doing what her fiance asked her to do. He more or less encouraged her to call the police to let them know that there was something going on in somewhere nearby in the alley close by the house. She did that, and she paid the ultimate price. And, I guess the bigger question is, where do we go from here? Now, I know the police chief, as my understanding, has been relieved of her duties.
Right.
But I think, as I understand it with this officer, he's had some problems in the past. And, law enforcement agencies really got to do better with screening people. And this guy, to me, when you're in a police car like that, first of all, you don't take that firearm out of your van, out of the holster, the way he did, because he jeopardized the life of his partner.
Now, I have to ask you something, though.
Sure,
I mean to cut you off, but if you're sitting in a police car, right, and
mm-hmm.
how accessible is your firearm? Because I know they have them in the holsters, and then I know they have the little, I don't know what you call it, but a little strap on them to keep people from trying to grab your weapon. So
right.
How feasible is it, or how accessible is it, I should say, to unstrap your weapon and then pull it out from a sitting position and then fire it? I mean, wouldn't you have enough time to identify a threat in the time it would take you to pull your weapon like that? Or is it basically, am I just looking at it wrong? Because, I mean, I don't know. I've never worn a police belt before, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's a good question. When that firearm is holstered on your side, when they pull it up, it's likely that they had the seatbelt on, and then when they stopped the car, they may have unbuckled at that point. Now, mm-hmm. my guess is when you're sitting, it's very difficult to really take that weapon out. You have to have already unbuckled the weapon, more or less taking it out of the holster and just laid it across your lap. And to me, to sort of looking at what happened, there's no way he could have done it that fast except that the weapon was already available to where he could discharge it. So
right.
what I'm thinking happened is when they pulled up, he saw this lady coming up to the car. He began taking his weapon out of the holster. When he heard the bang, he instantly came up with the firearm and discharged it. And that's probably what happened more or less in this particular scenario. And,
right.
Of course, once you discharge the firearm, it's too late to realize, hey, I made a mistake, and let me go correct it, because they try to help her, but it was too late. The thing that gets me, though, is the fact that this guy, he doesn't want to talk, and I understand, he's the subject of an investigation, and he doesn't really have to do that. but there's a certain presumption of guilt that sort of comes out when people sort of keep quiet. And I think people do need to know what happened so that they can have a clearer mind as to police practices and maybe the policy of this particular agency.
Right.
And they're not doing that. And he's going to have to write up something and submit it. But the problem is that if he starts talking, they will use that information more or less either to help his case or hurt his case. And, you know, again, this is something that probably should not have happened in any way.
Right.
Police officers are trained. I mean, you know, if you are going to be that jumpy to where you hear a loud noise and you just start shooting, there's no way in the world you should have been a police officer. I mean, I've had incidents where I've had my firearm pointed at a person, and you know, they were just a finger trigger away from meeting, you know, their death. But I made sure I kept a cool, calm, collected type of attitude because I didn't want to take somebody's life. Because I got to tell you, when you're a police officer, you may have the law on your side, but I'm going to tell you, if you take somebody's life, friends become enemies very quickly. Right. They will throw you under the bus, and you are guilty until proven innocent. And so, and I went into every scenario where I had to take my weapon out. I said, okay, I am not going to discharge this firearm unless I know for certain my life is in danger. And this gentleman, when he discharged this weapon, I can't say that he believed his life was in danger. If anybody should have fired, it should have been his partner, who was closer to the lady at the window.
Right.
So he shoots across from her.
Two questions, Najee. Is this shooting of this white woman by a Somali cop different from other police shootings?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't like to sort of get into the color thing, because what I look at when in law enforcement is I look at the character of that officer. I look at the training of that officer. You know, the outcome is not going to be any different if it was a white officer that did the shooting. So I try to avoid that as much as we can. But you need to understand now, we need to understand that the history of law enforcement has not been good. It has not been good, because the original purpose for law enforcement in this country was to track down runaway slaves. And people need to understand that. That was the whole sole purpose for law enforcement. And so, you know, when you have this, you know, when people are sort of distrusting of law enforcement, I understand that, because when an officer wears the uniform, he wears the history that's associated with that uniform.
Right.
And so he's got to wear more than one hat there. You know, you got to be, you know, cop friendly, but you also got to be cop, you know, I need to earn your trust. And a lot of officers don't do that. The problem with law enforcement, a lot of law enforcement officers, is they want to demand respect. And they think that you're supposed to respect them because they have a badge, but respect has to be earned. It has to be earned. And
now, I wanted to ask you about that. When you were trained as an officer, right, did they train you more like community policing, or was it more like Fort Apache the Bronx? And that's probably Fort Apache the Bronx is an old movie about cops in New York City, and that's probably a bad example, because in that movie there was actually somebody going around killing officers. So that may be a bad example. But I think I've read articles where cities who switched to community policing have seen their incident rates go down a lot. So when you were trained, was it more community policing, or was it more just, you know, like how they say on TV sometimes, where it's like, you know, your only job is to make it home to your family. If anybody gets in their way, you know. Yeah.
That's a good question. I think part of the in most states, they have what is called BLT, basic law enforcement training. So unless the curriculum has changed, most states get you through a curriculum very quickly. They don't have a lot of time to sort of focus on any particular area. They give you the very basic. That's why they call it basic law enforcement training. The agency itself really has to sort of implement ongoing training to help officers when they come out of the schools to let them know, okay, look, that was the school edition. Now we're going to give you the real world edition. We need you to understand that when you go and work in precinct so-and-so, that you got to get out and walk and talk with folks. You can't sit in your cars. Unfortunately, most officers are so fearful now. The whole idea of community policing is just, it's not something that most people want to entertain at this point, because a lot of people are getting killed. Officers are being shot. You're having these random shootings. Police officers sitting in their cars. I mean, it's a two-way street. So it's going to take the community to work with the police, but the police are going to have to work with them as well. And incidentally, I wrote a book on traffic stops and commentary on racial profiling through my brand, For Rookies. And if you go to the website, forrookiesbrand.com, you will be able to kind of see what the book is about. And I'll address part of what you just asked in the book. And I do talk about respect, R-E-S-P-C-E-C-T, Franklin. Miss Franklin, I mean, that's true. When she came up with that song, respect goes a long ways. And if the community is not feeling respected, they're going to retaliate. And officers can't afford not to have the community to be allies for them, because we need them. I need them when I was out there, because a lot of crimes, you can't solve them unless you got the community to volunteer, come up and say, hey, look, but they got to be made to feel, hey, I'm part of the team. I don't want to be feeling like, okay, I'm coming to bring you information. Do you want to arrest me because you think I know too much? I mean, that's not going to work.
Now, I will say one thing, though, backtracking a little bit, talking about race in this, right? And usually when it comes to police shootings, just like you, I like to just put it as cop versus civilian as opposed to color. Now, I do notice that when you have a white cop and a black person, but that's usually more like the press and social media, who works to demonize the victim in this case. But my thing is, and I saw supposedly Minnesota has a growing Somali or Muslim populace. And a couple of days after the shooting, I saw a video of Michelle Bachmann giving a speech to a bunch of people, talking about, and she was using all the racist dog whistles. She was saying he was an affirmative action hire, that he was a Muslim, and, going on, and not really addressing the shooting as much as she was addressing how dangerous Muslims are, and using that cop as an example of that. So she wasn't really addressing the shooting as much as she was using that. And it just so happened, and I'm not going to lie, when I found out that he was a Muslim, I was like, the first thing I did was I looked up whether Minnesota has a death penalty. And I know it's not supposed to be innocent, it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but, there's a huge anti-Muslim sentiment in the United States that's gone back a while. Even since before September 11th. September 11th just made it 10 times worse. So, I would just love to just say, look, if they just put it, I put it like this. The poor woman got murdered. Not in cold blood, not like, oh, I hate you, I'm going to shoot you. But, I'm pretty sure it's a tough one, but the whole thing about race has already been interjected in there by people like Michelle Bachmann, who just saw, oh, Muslim? Yeah, he's got to be guilty. And I think the fact that he didn't talk to investigators, he got his own lawyer, I think it's just in reaction to that. To just knowing, okay, they're coming to get me. I got to defend myself. So, do you think that this is a special circumstance? Like, if he was just an ordinary, I don't mean to, I know it sounds horrible, if he was just an ordinary black person in a shooting like that, do you think that it would be any different than if he was a Muslim in this case?
Probably
black
not.
Is black.
Probably
I'm
not.
not thinking black
Probably
is
not.
black. I think it just
Yeah.
puts it on steroids, but for the most part, black is black.
Yeah, I mean, and just understand that he has, and I know you understand this. I mean, he has every right to defend himself, and
right.
I think he understands that because of what has happened, and he's probably starting to play some of the scenarios in his mind. Wait a minute, this is a white lady, I'm a black guy. He understands that there's going to be some fallout behind all of this.
Right.
And but I think a lot of times what we're seeing is that again, it goes back. People are very fearful now, so they want to sort of try to tie things in to the Muslims to say that because of this, look at the Muslim XYZ. It's a classic diversionary tactic, and it's very effective. That's why it works so well, and it's not going to change. And people got to recognize that when they see it, because there are good Muslims out here. There are people of all faiths and all religions that are good, and there's a lot of people that are bad. And, if you sort of adopt the mentality that one size fits all, then there's no good Christian. There's no good Protestant. There's no good Catholic. Because if you do some research, you'll find that somebody in any of those religions have done something questionable. They've done something detestable. So what I try to remind people is that we need to always take every case by case.
Right. And
let their own set of facts sort of speak for themselves, and then use a little common sense and make your own judgment. We keep allowing the media to sort of tell us how to think, what to think, when to think.
Yeah.
That we get Donald Trump in office. That's the result.
And, when they first started reporting this shooting, it was just like when they didn't know anything, right? And
right.
I will admit to being sometimes led by the nose by the media, because if there is, long story short, there was something that happened out in Seattle with a cop where he was trying to give a girl a jaywalking ticket, and she didn't want the ticket, and they were going at it, and he actually had to, and it got physical, and then another girl jumped in. Now the cop was white and the girl was black. The girl was maybe like late teens, maybe early 20s, and another black girl jumped in and started grabbing on the cop, and the cop just turned and just punched her in the face. And I'll say this, I was on the cop side because you don't run up and grab a cop from behind, and when a cop is already in a heated situation. He's lucky all she did was punch him in the face. But in the local Seattle paper, one article had it as cop, what did they say? Policing techniques being revisited after incident, right? And I'm like, okay, that sounds fair. And then some other rag said, white cop punches black girl. So if you just read just that title, you're just like, oh man, I can't believe he did that, without watching the video and seeing like, why did that girl? And the funny thing is, you can see the girl's boyfriend trying to pull her away, like, come on, this ain't none of our business, and she had to jump in anyway. But the press just kind of leads us by the nose in this. When they first started, the Justine Damon shooting, all of a sudden now, when they had no information, they just reported it as they saw it. There was a shooting. The person was unarmed. When she walked up to the car, she called the cops and was shot. And then a couple of days later, now all of a sudden, it's a Somali Muslim shoots white woman.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, the press just kind of leads you by the nose sometimes. And I'm not going to say, I'd be a lie if I said I didn't fall for it sometimes.
I think we all do. And you have to understand, if it bleeds, it leads. That's what the media lives by.
Yeah.
So that's their motto. They're looking for a story. And they don't really care if it's so inflammatory that it causes a riot. They don't care. And I'm not really knocking the media per se, because a lot of what they did has helped with change. You're thinking about the civil rights movement. A lot of that stuff, and Eyes on the Prize. I don't know if you've seen the series, but I've watched all of them. And the media reported it. They were telling the stories of what was happening in America. And had it not been for that, a lot of people would never believe it. oh, no, that can't be happening in the United States. No. But when they saw it for themselves, they're like, oh, okay, wow, wait a minute, this is not good. But you know, in the age that we're in now, you have to almost do something ridiculous. I mean, ridiculously stupid to get noticed now. People are just doing any and everything. So if they can get a good story to somehow fit in and get noticed among the millions of stories that are out there, they're going to do it. And things like race always gets a front seat. You know, people love this kind of thing. Right. It incites some of the worst passions in people, and the media loves it when people sort of come together, one side shouting this, and the other side shouting that, black versus white, Ku Klux Klan, Black Panthers, you name it. They want to be there in the midst because guess what? It's money.
Yeah.
It's money.
And I just found out today that Black Lives Matter is actually they're actually protesting for the woman that got shot. You know,
as well as they should. I mean, look, the thing is, we have to get to a point where we say we've had enough. We've had enough injustice. It doesn't matter to whom the injustice happens to and by whom. It can be a black person that commits the injustice or a white person. It doesn't matter. We have to get to a point where we want more morality in our society, and
right.
that we're getting tired of, you know, the murders, the killings, the rapes, because the truth is, when it's all said and done, I don't want a neighbor that looks like me just because he looks like me and he's a rapist, a murderer, someone that's going to rob my house when I'm gone. You know, I don't care about that. And see, we got this idea that we think people, because, you know, well, you know, I'm white or you black, or we look the same, we are the same XYZ, that we think alike. But that's maybe the only thing that we have in common is our skin color. Yeah. You may not have anything else in common.
Right.
You know, I may want to work for a living. You might decide you want to go rob for a living. And if that's the case, you and I are on two total ends of the spectrum. And I want people that's going to make this world better. I want friends that are going to make this world better. You know, I want to be part of a movement that's going to make things better, not to divide people, because we've got enough of that already. You know,
you're definitely right about that. But I don't mean to cut you off, but we gotta move on. But hey, okay. I really appreciate you calling in, man. I know Mr. Blue does as well. And hey, you know, we try to be on every week, man. Call back anytime.
Okay, I sure will.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right.
All right, then let's have a quick music break and keep it moving.
Okay.
The breakdown.
Classic. Yeah. Classic summer cause I'm already in it. Why beyond all the flashy lights and the candy glade? This is more than just history, leaving scholars in mystery, leaving them in the wonder of where I'm about to be. This is more than just a written page of words. I try to feed you the world and then give you a taste of earth. I'm really trying to tell you my side of the story. If I did it, I would say fuck your side of the story. I'm a young soul with high steam, and that means if I get mean by any means, my horns will come and snatch your whole team. Young and mean, nothing wrong with being a G. I'm a classic, so to become one bastard that y'all thought was whacking out is fantastic. Ha! Sorry, let's get it hot. Almost hurt myself. I've turned myself into something I can stop myself. Think I'm turning into Pac himself. Woo! Be like the world against me. Everybody say cat, all eyes on me. Yeah, most praise to most high. Some rappers shoot for the chance for most die. Thought it critically cause I don't want to south side. Cause you can say I'm thinking out of the box. Scramble around like she struggle for cock. Scramble around like I struggle for props. Bigger than life, what is life? Give me 100 for props. 100 at top, your fave. Turn the game to a slave. Control the game, now they calling me God. Become a legend, saying what are the odds? Control the afterlife and tell them I'm God. History made and now the mystery starts. Here we go, let's break it down and tell them all what they want.
Praise the Lord. Give God your prayers. Let's pray homage. Let's represent Tri-Town. I love you all, even if you lay me and shit, yo, it's fine, man. I don't gotta fuck with you, but I love you.
Right, and Mercer Prescott with POLI-TRICKS with his eclectic band of cronies is back.
Okay. And I think everything that needed to be said about the Justine Damon case, we already went over. There was one thing I want to touch on before I move on. Was I had a couple of examples, especially stuff that happened in Minnesota, and one of them was Jamar Clark, and my friends already gave me some pushback on that, and they were like, Jamar Clark is not really a good case in this because he was not a good person. He was in and out of prison all the time, had a horrible temper, was in prison for armed robbery, threatened to burn down his girlfriend's apartment, and not just saying so. He actually had like a trail of accelerant leading from her apartment to show that he meant business after a bad breakup. Was not a good guy. He was murdered by the cops in 2015. Now, here's the thing. He did, according to eyewitness accounts, he did get into a scuffle with cops and paramedics, right? The cops said that he tried to go for their gun, and that's when he got shot in the head. The eyewitnesses said that, yes, he did scuffle with the cops and the paramedics, but he'd already given up and he was already handcuffed when he was shot in the head. And the same police chief that was fired defended those cops, and the mayor was standing right next to her when she defended those cops. And now Justine Damon gets murdered, and now a week later she loses her job. So it was like, okay, was Jamar Clark going to be the last straw? Was Philando Castile going to be the last straw? Or was Justine Damon going to be the last straw? And that's all I'm going to say on it for now. We'll see how this plays out. Like I said, there's still a lot more that needs to be told, because right now he's not talking to investigators. Talking about Mohammed Noor, so we'll see what happens. But moving on, I did see something very interesting a couple of days ago, and I did find out when I was doing some more research, there was another poll taken last month. Now, I know it's only July of 2017, right? Elections, we still haven't gotten to the midterms yet. So the next presidential election is in 2020. But we have such a shitty president that we're already talking about, okay, who are we going to put up against this guy, right? So they ran a couple of polls. So they ran one back in May, and another one recently. So they had a list of Democrats and even some Republicans who would run against Trump. And this is the mock poll, right? So it's not like they did a sample size of like 10,000 people or anything like that. But they actually rate these polls, and they rated this one a B+. So let's see what they say. So they said if they had a election right now, who would win against Trump? So they had Joe Biden was number one. He would beat Trump in an election right now by 15 points. Bernie Sanders would win by 13 points. Elizabeth Warren would win by 10 points. Al Franken by 8 points. Cory Booker would win by 7 points right now. The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, would beat Trump by 5 points. Kamala Harris would beat Trump by 1 percentage point. And Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook guy, it would be a tie. So, out of all those people who I just mentioned and their percentages, Blue, take a guess who the DNC is courting right now to go up against Trump in 2020.
Cory Booker.
No, not at all. You would think so, and he was a strong favorite until he sold out. Okay. And when I say sold out, I don't mean. I mean sold out as far as his vote. If you remember, a couple months ago, Bernie Sanders had a bill that would have allowed the U.S. to negotiate for cheap drugs from Canada.
Okay.
Right.
I need some of that in my life.
We all need some of that in our lives.
Right.
You know, especially with my insurance company rejecting. I found out that my insurance company made, God, I forget how many billions of dollars in one quarter. And just my medications I need to live, they rejected it. I guess because they weren't getting their cut. But anyway, when they had that bill go up, there were a handful of Democrats. Basically, you even had Republicans that jumped ship to vote for that bill. Even Ted Cruz voted for that bill. Ted Cruz, one of the most despicable human beings, even he voted for that bill. And out of a handful of Democrats who jumped ship to vote against it and killed the bill, the main one, Cory Booker. Why? Because he gets... Because he gets 10... Oh, no, you're right. Because he gets money.
Nah, it was a clean show up until that point. My bad. I'm about to edit that.
I think I'm just gonna edit that out. But that's basically he was the lead. He was a ring. I wouldn't say that he's the ringleader of that, but he's the most high-profile person, most high-profile Democrat who voted against that bill. And even then, even after losing a lot of support, he still would beat Trump by 7 points. Why
would anybody with a brain? Oh, you said they had him in their pockets. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, he was
money
pretty
over
much
everything. Cream, cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bill. Fuck Cory Booker.
But I guess people are just like, well, he's not Trump, so. The Rock. The funny thing about The Rock running for president right now is that nobody knows his platforms. Nobody knows what he's all about.
Well, duh, we didn't know that about Trump, and he's the president. Come on, man. Yeah. This is America. We don't care. Just like you said earlier, our moral standards is in the shits.
Yeah.
We're less intelligent today. I want to blame Google. I ain't going to lie. 30 of my fucking IQ points went that way. We have less moralistic standing. I blame that on reality TV. And that's enough, right? Less intelligent and less morals equal Trump era.
With Google, it all depends on how it's used. My nephew, he probably doesn't remember this. He was maybe like 8 or 9, right? And his mom had just got, maybe a little older, but his mom had just gotten an iPad. And at her job, she got an iPad for her 10-year anniversary at the job.
Okay.
Like, how awesome is that?
That's pretty cool.
She worked for a doctor's office. They gave her an iPad.
Okay.
So
should have gave her a Ferrari, but whatever.
Yeah. Oh, it's not a plastic surgeon. It's a
It's a regular doctor. Oh, my bad.
Yeah. But we had I was talking with him and I used a word he'd never heard before. So he was just like Uncle Merce, what's that mean? He said, oh, you know what? Don't worry about it. And he just grabs his iPad and he just looks it up. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, The information is out there. People just don't really...
That's the problem, though. I mean, versus looking up a dictionary or knowing it based on studying an encyclopedia. I remember when I was a kid, we had a whole gang of encyclopedias. And believe me, either we were reading it for enjoyment or copying a section out of punishment. We learned the information that was in them books. Not my sister as much as I did because I stayed in trouble, but
My father still has our old encyclopedias from like the early 80s, and I swear
my
to God.
My mother still has the encyclopedias from like, it must have been, I'm going to say 84, 85.
Yeah. And I swear, it's like just looking at them, it's like, you know how many book reports I wrote with those encyclopedias?
You know how I rocked a 4.0 in school? Behind those encyclopedias and knowing how to cite, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't do that with Google. Well, you can, but it's not the same. It's harder to Google websites. I mean, cite websites.
When I was in school, they wouldn't allow us to use Wikipedia like that. So basically, if it was like the introduction that just gave you like the basis of it, they would allow that. But like as far as like citing Wikipedia, most of my classes would not allow it.
Mm-hmm.
Only because
the same way. They did not see it as a reputable source. We had to use science publications that had factual backings.
And they had like a whole digital library to go through, but you know, Wikipedia was just easier because you just type in what you want and it just comes up.
That's true.
So.
That's true. But at the same time, you know, you or I or your mama or your granddaddy, your grincy, all y'all can edit it and make it be whatever you want it to be to favor or skew whatever you want to skew.
Yeah. And as far as reality TV, though, the problem with reality TV is that reality TV is entertainment, you know. But it's kind of like with rap, right? I grew up on Ghetto Boys, Scarface, Cool G rap.
Okay,
do you think that I really believe that Scarface filled up an entire cemetery with his enemies? No, it's entertainment. But there are some people who just take that rap and and don't get me wrong, I had my EPMD fisherman hat. I had 3 of those X-Clan burst sticks at a place on Jamaica Avenue to sell them. I had 3 of those things. So I'm not going to say that I didn't adapt to that style because, you know, I was younger.
Same here.
You know?
Same here.
But, you know, I'm not going to be like, oh, MOP has a song about robbing people called Andy Up, so I'm going to get me a ski mask and a gun and start robbing people. Or Biggie made a song called 10 Crack Commandments, so, hey, Biggie could do it, I could do it. Nah.
Right. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of youth out there that think they can, man. And I blame it on not having appropriate father figures or male figures in their life. But you know what? That's something we'll say for 360 degrees breakdown. And we don't need to say that on politics, even though it is impacted by politics as well, as people who are not knowledgeable or who don't know or who are ignorant make bad choices or make no choices, and we end up with the state of affairs we find ourselves in today.
Right.
And it's a terrible, terrible place to be.
Yeah,
I am thankful for NPR, but I don't listen to any other type of news broadcast. You dig what I'm saying?
I was going to post this later because I was telling people, like, the only time that I ever read, like, New York Times or MSNBC is if I need, first of all, if a celebrity dies and I need to make absolutely sure that they're dead, then I'll go to CNN. But other than that, like when I do stuff for the show, I go on like New York Times and Washington Post and stuff like that. But as far as my news, I get most of my news from YouTube, but only a select few sites. Like I do Young Turks, I do Secular Talk, I do Ring of Fire has become one of my new favorites. Sam Cedar, stuff like that. But other than that, I don't really watch the news like that anymore.
All right.
I know that's become a millennial thing, but
I think it's a millennial thing. My psychiatrist, when we came back to America, my psychiatrist recommended that we don't, and he said it would severely impact our mood and emotional state because we were so accustomed to whitewashed news overseas. Yeah.
And Michael Moore said it best in Bowling for Columbine. He says when crime goes down, reporting of crime goes up because they got to keep people off balance.
There you go.
And make them afraid of their own shadow.
Right.
But I digressed a lot.
Please
I apologize.
Answer some questions about what you've learned.
So let's discuss what we learned today. Summarize real quick.
Yeah. Oh, but real quick, basically. The DNC is courting Kamala Harris. So they had a big fundraising thing for her. Hillary Clinton's money bundlers and donors and stuff like that. She went out to an event in the Hamptons to talk to all these people. Now, this is a double-edged sword for me, right? Because, number one, you have Kamala Harris, who is, she's been really good. And she hasn't done anything, her voting record doesn't say anything about her selling out. Her voting record has still been solid. But just the fact that Hillary's people, you know, want to get their hands on her, that's bad. And the fact that she only beats Trump by 1%, do we really want that close of a race anymore? No. Absolutely not. But, wrapping it up. Now you said, what have we learned today, huh? Well, I guess I did still learn that there's still some good cops out there, you know, like our gentleman that called into the show. And I have to not always be so cynical, you know. I get a lot of pushback from my friends on Facebook because it always seems like I'm very anti-cop. But, you know, I think that I rag on cops the way that I do because I think that deep down, I want them to feel how they make me feel. And maybe, hopefully, they'll get it. So what about you, Blue? What did you learn today?
I learned that in America, in any given year, 693 white cops can kill African-American males. And yeah, you know, the Black Lives Movement will speak on it and everything, but 9 times out of 10, those cops will get away with that crime. I learned that with this last instance that we are still brainwashed in many ways, as the Black Lives Movement has sided with the white victim versus the Somali police officer. And I think that has a lot to do with colorism, as well as what we used to call Jimmy Lynch culture, in which blacks are always sided against other blacks based on either their color, their upbringing, where they came from, or what they're about. And I think that Black Lives Matter is, at this point, a joke. I think they slighted America by doing this. I think that, you know, if nothing, I would have took a neutral stance and see what played out. But by Black Lives Matter saying that now white lives matter, not being racist or anything, but turning against their brother, not knowing all the details, I think that's appalling, and I think that it's a mistake. And I no longer, until they can remedy this in some way, I no longer. And I used to dedicate money and focus money and go to marches and all that for the Black Lives Movement. But nah, I can't do that right now because
I will say one thing.
I've been scared before, and I've done things I probably shouldn't have done. And we can just say, I don't think this was a criminal act. I think it was someone fearful. Yeah, he probably should not have a badge, but yet I don't think it's criminal, as we all make mistakes. How many cops killed all these African American males that said that it was a mistake or it got out of hand or whatever, and they weren't, and therefore were not convicted of any criminality? It's disgusting.
Right. Now, I will say one thing about Black Lives Matter, and you're going to hang up on me on this, but I'm kind of glad.
Let me get my phone ready.
I'm kind of glad they're doing this because, not to appease the alt-right. I don't really give 2 squirts of piss what the alt-right thinks. But
sorry, that's incorrect.
I always saw Black Lives Matter, even though it's Black Lives Matter, it's basically, I always saw them more as civilians first. So I never saw them as just, you know, black versus white. I just always saw them more as civilians first. It just so happens that more black civilians are getting the short end of the stick than anybody else. Because if the tables were turned, it would still be the same difference. It would still be, hey, you had this poorly trained cop out there who, like Don Knotts, shakiest gun in the West, shooting at shadows, shooting across his own partner. Any way you slice it, what that cop did was wrong. Now, his motives, that's a different matter altogether. I agree with you on that. I mean, there was no malice involved with shooting that woman. It was basically he was just scared. You know, this happened not too long after that cop in New York got her head blown off, and, you know, for just sitting in her car.
Right. Exactly.
Know? But the thing that made it more sketchy was the fact that they didn't even have their body cameras on, and they're supposed to have their body cameras on when they deal with civilians, and they didn't even have their dash cam cameras on. That's what's going to make it really, really look bad. But
well, in that case, they're both at fault. Both officers are at fault for that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, because neither one of them had their body cameras on.
All the focus should not be on the Somali. Yeah, sure, he's the killer, but when it's all said and done, if they throw those body cam and the car dash cam on him, well, that's bullshit, because honestly, the driver activates the dash cam.
Right. Oh, no, you're right. And both of them should take the fall for it, because it did say in their guidelines that they don't have to have them on all the time, but it's mandatory for them to have it on when they deal with civilians. So, yeah. And you're right. I mean, if the cop who was driving does the dash cam and the dash cam was off, you know, it's on them. But we'll see what happens. You know, he hasn't talked to. He hasn't talked to.
Interesting case, which I'll be watching very closely.
Yes, I think we'll all be watching very closely. You know.
All right. Well, that concludes another episode of The Breakdown, POLI-TRICKS, with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies. Thank you for Najee, the law enforcement officer expert, who offered his opinion and statements today. Thank you very much, and look forward to his book that he mentioned earlier in the broadcast. You can subscribe to this station via iTunes Podcast or Google Play Podcast, as well as many other subscribing stations for podcasts. And this concludes another episode of POLI-TRICKS.
1, 3, 5, 7. DMB, grace and peace, what it do? I be running the block, cause you can catch me when I run in other streets and that. It's time to rise above it. Up in them city streets, trying to make a change of something. Advocate better living, loving on all the children, motivate all the children, even the men and women, even daddy or mama, cause all the people they missing. We witness open soap, poverty hard to cope. That death went in elope, shooting them different dopes. All neck with the rope, answer chance with a note. All neck with the rope, answer chance with a note. People moving they feet, but you can see they moving blind. We all came about the womb with scales up on our eyes. You check that voicemail, see God calling me. Better check that recent call or that message that he sent. Let's move like we Katrina, we don't need the FEMA. Category 7, divine intercession. Drug infested corners, lonely women and children. It's time to forklift it. Rebuilding burning bridges, removing strains of the system. Socially organizing, infiltrate the media, reconstruction the images. From city to city, it's time to rise up. From the backyard to all around the world. Beginning with the men, then the families. We headed to the church, then the community, then the city streets, the whole country, the whole world, y'all. Now this is the. Tell them this is the. Tell them this is the. Tell them this is the. This is the breakdown. Priorities are now minorities. Minorities are now priorities. A vacant stand of men. It's a shock wave. Started back in the day. Call it a boomerang. Shh. Be quiet. To the gunplay. They give us lotto tickets that won't help our life stay. Pushing them exit O's. Click, clack, hold up. Bang, bang, bang. Now they wanna show up. We just need to step up. Follow Christ who called us. Let's hop up in the ring. We like Tyson, we don't let up. We must be crazy foolish, letting our nurtures do it, letting our women do it. It's all leaving and just lose it. Why they raising 3 kids off of food stamps? We busy chasing dreams from the curb we never left, but we never accepted, waiting to be accepted. Defiled ignorance, when we learn our lesson. Let's be security, let's be stability. Let's go and get involved. Now this is ministry, this is that right meeting. It's time for harvest season. Moving forward, cause we follow one, Christ Jesus. He's the only risen king. Believe that, alright. We out. Ooh. From city to city, it's time to rise up. From the backyard to all around the world. Beginning with the men, then the families. We headed to the church, then the community, then the city streets, the whole country, the whole world, y'all. Now this is the. Tell them this is the. Tell them this is the. Tell them this is the. This is the breakdown. Man, we are vacant in our city streets, man. The streets are calling out for help, man. Not even the streets, the suburbs, the big houses, they're crying out for something. And this is where Christ Jesus comes in. This is where we step up and we preach the gospel, engage the culture, and show them what real love is. That's what Jesus did, right? And we out, and we out, and we out.